So how to shoot a documentary on a budget? On a very low budget, almost zero budget. I'm Teresa Khalil, I'm a writer and a documentary filmmaker, and most of my documentaries are being shot on a low budget. So in this video I will share with you behind the scenes of my film, which was just screened a few weeks ago on this channel, Invisible Hope. How did I shoot it on a budget? How did I find the topic for the film? What equipment did I use? And what are the things that I learned from this experience? So let me share with you behind the scenes of this film. I was in Hungary, in Budapest, and I was doing this film for my master's. The master's is docnomads, and I made a video about it before. It's a scholarship if you want to learn cinema in Europe. So I will link it down below. So we were supposed to make a documentary, a short documentary. It has to be 10 minutes and it has to have in the title the word hope. So how can you find a topic for your documentary? Usually I'm someone who doesn't have a problem with finding topics because I'm always thinking, I'm observing life all the time. I have a lot of questions that I want to answer. So on that day, I had a magazine for tourists in Budapest, and I found a black page. It was totally black. It had just one word, invisible. So I was curious to know what is it about. I checked it and I found it's an exhibition where you can go and experience how is it like with people who can't see. I went to the exhibition, and there we were supposed to go into different rooms and try to discover what is there, what is in the environment around us. And of course it was dark, we couldn't see anything. We had to have a guide with us, and this guide was Gabor. Gabor was born blind. As I went through the experience and as I started talking to Gabor, I had a question that I wanted to answer. How does life look like in Gabor's mind? Someone who was born blind, he never saw anything in his life. What does the image of life looks like in his mind? Is it totally black? How does he experience things, imagine things? And this was the topic of the film. I wanted to answer this question. I wanted to experience Gabor's life and understand how he's interacting with life without this important sense of being able to see. I went to my professor. I told him that I want to discover how does life look like in Gabor's mind, and someone who was born blind. And my professor said, you can't make this documentary. You will never know. And he gave me an example with the dog. He said, you can never know how a dog experiences life because you are not a dog. And I wasn't convinced, because there are many research, there are books and movies that are trying to understand how does a dog see life or experience life. And he told me if I make this documentary, I will not get my master's. So I had to make another documentary, which is Eric's Hope. I will leave a link to it. And then I made this film, Invisible Hope, for me to answer this question and to go through this experience. And so this film, the topic of this film, was coming out of passion, out of curiosity. Okay, now we talk about the budget. How much money did I have for this documentary? I had for this documentary zero budget. We were supposed to do things, maybe use the equipment that we have at the university, but we didn't have an assigned amount of money for this documentary. So I used for shooting my own camera, which I already had from before, nothing special, it's just a DSLR, which I'm actually still using until now. And I always prefer small cameras, because when you do documentaries on a budget, or films in general, and you're doing everything in the film, so I can't carry heavy cameras. I always try to get as much light equipment as possible. And sometimes I used the phone, but in this film I used my DSLR. I also had on the camera my Rode microphone, which is a directional microphone I already had from before, and it can record the sound that is in front of it. So you will notice in the film that when I was, for example, in Gabor's home, and I was trying to understand how does he use computers, how does he live, and my voice was not so clear because the directional microphone was pointed to Gabor, so my voice was not captured well. When we went to the room where I wanted Gabor to discover what is this room about and the objects there, which is similar to the experience that we had in the exhibition, I felt that the directional microphone will not be good enough. I wanted Gabor to be free, to move around and discover things, so I borrowed a wireless microphone. And so that's all the equipment I needed for this documentary to tell this story and to answer my question. Other expenses I had was, for example, transportation. I had to travel to his small city by train, so all those expenses. Also, you don't pay the character in a documentary, but sometimes you invite them for something, for lunch or some juice or something. So those were the little other expenses that I spent. Now we come to editing. I was, of course, editing the film by myself, and when it comes to music, I found a song which I loved called Don't Close Your Eyes, and I felt it matches very well with this documentary. So I contacted the musician and I asked him if I can use the song and the music of the song in my documentary, and it turned out that actually this musician, he make all his music for free. You can use them in your work, just need to credit him, and this is what I did. So that's how I got the music. The film was done, it was screened during the masters in the university, and also it was screened. I organized an event with the documentary club in Budapest, and we had a screening, and afterwards me and Gabor, we were answering the questions. It was also screened in few festivals, and now it is available on the channel. You can watch it, and now you know behind the scenes. But I would like to share also, what did I learn from this documentary? Maybe I didn't get 100% a clear view of Gabor's experience, because of course you can't be in someone's shoes 100%, but you can come closer. So I think that I did come closer to Gabor's world. I was able to understand how it was the first time for me to meet someone who was born blind, and how is he interacting with life and experiencing life. And I also was able to answer my question or come closer to the answer of how does he imagine life. So plus me going through the exhibition, trying to touch things to know what are they, and then meeting Gabor and using clay and using seeing him how he interact with the objects and all that. All this gave me an idea of what could life be in his mind. And the other thing that I discovered is how that people are different. Gabor is someone who loves life. He loves life to the maximum, which is not how I maybe experience life. I mean, I'm someone who was always had a lot of questions about life, and I think it is not, I mean, if I had the choice, I wouldn't choose to come to life. But Gabor is not like that. He loves life so much, and he doesn't mind suffering at all. It was great for me to meet someone who's the opposite of me, because it just, it made me try to see life in a different way. I didn't change, but it was, I just realized that, okay, I mean, maybe I can endure seeing suffering if people who are suffering are not sad about it. So the reason what made me discover that Gabor is a very special and unique person. One of my colleagues made a documentary with a man who applied for mercy killing. And this is available in Belgium if you have an incurable disease or sickness and doctor said that you are a hopeless case, then you can apply for mercy killing for doctors to end your life. And that man had a health condition. I will not go into details, but he had a health condition. He applied, his application was rejected because it's not one of those sicknesses that deserves the mercy killing. But then he applied again because it was for him impossible to live life with such a condition. And he applied again, and then his application was accepted and they ended his life. It was a shock for me to discover that Gabor, in addition to being blind, he also had a similar condition and even more difficult than that guy. And Gabor was very active, very optimistic, loving life, wandering around, had a lot of dreams and expectations, and he was looking for a full-time job. He was so happy with this documentary because he was always curious to do new things. And this made me discover that we don't react the same way for suffering. So it is different from one person to another. So that is behind the scenes for Invisible, short documentary, 10 minutes. You can now watch it on the channel. And let me know, do you make documentary films on a budget? What do you think of Gabor? Do you think you can imagine how life looks like in the mind of someone who was born blind after watching the documentary? If you are interested in filming documentaries on a budget, there are 2 courses I made on Skillshare. One for shooting your first mini documentary, and the second one for directing a documentary online in another country. So I will leave the courses in the description box. If you want to join my newsletter where I share my lifestyle, which movies I'm working on at the moment, then you can go to my website terezakhalil.com, sign up for the newsletter, and I will send you a monthly newsletter, just once per month. And see you in a coming video.